Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, David.
Another beautiful Wednesday in South Florida. And here we are once again in the executive dining room of Manor Care. I want to thank them, as I always do, for extending the courtesy of letting us have their tables and chairs, even though we're bringing our own coffee and snacks. It's a reasonable quid pro quo. Today I am extremely fortunate in the fact that there are 7 women and just me.
A bevy of beauties.
A bevy of beauties, and I want to point out for the audience, don't you just see Bernice in all of her radiant
Love it.
and for those of you that had the opportunity last night to watch the show, Muriel was the star of the show, and indeed was a wonderful professional.
Right.
Looked great, spoke well.
Right.
You were a credit to everybody.
Yes,
And I
you
want to
did.
thank you, and you're on our list for 2 months hence, all
Ah,
right, when we have a hence party. So,
And the rest of us are just chopped liver.
yeah, that's right.
no. You are all welcome to make a cameo appearance anytime you would like, or not anytime, but we would be more than happy to schedule you and listen to your tales of joy and woe. That's just the way it works, and Bernice made a very cogent observation. What the heck happened to October?
Right.
Yes.
2 more days.
Yep.
Yesterday I went into the grocery store, and then we'll move on. There were bags of diabetes. I could not believe the amount of candy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And Saturday it'll all be half price.
At half price, right. And that's when that chocolate takes on that wonderful little white,
Right.
it's been out too long.
Right.
Right, because that was actually last year's
Yeah, right.
Halloween candy, back for an encore.
And they wonder why
performance.
children have diabetes. you know.
Right. And my girlfriend's daughter, we went to Big Lots.
Yes.
And she bought these boxes of Whitman's chocolates, which she was distributing to a nursing facility that her mother had stayed at, and she wanted to say thank you. But these boxes were absolutely huge.
Right. Oh,
Whitman's
my
and...
Because it's Walt Whitman, who was not a small individual, so when he went for candy, he did it.
Wow. It was so funny. And she had like 6 boxes, and everybody was going, whoa, somebody's going to have a good time.
Right. Or not necessarily.
Norman's place is having a Halloween party,
Okay.
so he wanted to have matching costumes. Although it's not required.
Who's he matching, you or?
He and I.
Ah,
A few years ago, when he was at the daycare facility that used to house us, who
Right.
shall not be mentioned, and they had a Halloween party. We went as also as matching characters, and truthfully, I think we should have one, but it was a fixed election.
oh, of course it is.
So
Senior centers
so what-
throw the election, typically to Republicans.
Oh,
I'll
God.
bring some pictures next time.
Right.
Of
What were you?
we were cat thieves.
Oh,
Cat thieves.
That was
you mean cat burglars?
yes.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought you
That
were
I
running
heard.
around the neighborhood stealing cats.
Yeah. She
But
might do
this,
that.
this time we're going to be tigers.
Tigers, okay.
Oh,
Did you
boy.
buy
Right,
the
and you'll
costume?
wear a little thing that says, I am an endangered species.
Right, yeah, good.
So I'll
Good
bring you
job.
pictures next week.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
I have an announcement that I should have made before the
You're pregnant.
every time I say that, that's what people say to me. And I say, sure.
Well, they're egging you on.
Right. On the 25th of this month, my
Yes.
daughter's birthday, her boyfriend proposed to her.
Oh.
Wow, it's about time.
Yes,
now,
you're
now,
right.
now at least they can get his and her in the nursing home. That's great. So when
We don't know. Yeah,
Oh, right.
Wedding. I mean, they
Right.
just got
In
engaged.
7 years, you get engaged.
Right.
And then it's another 3 to 5 till we get married.
So she
And then
wants
2
to do
years
a wedding,
later,
she just doesn't know where, because they live in California.
Right, you can do
And
one
my
here.
family's all here, right.
Right,
yeah.
so we'll do it here.
Okay,
All right.
maybe in this room.
Right. Why not?
I have no problem with that. I think she wants to get married in the Keys at my sister's house.
Oh,
Key
that's
Largo.
very nice, as
Oh,
long
very
as you
nice.
don't do it during
Hurricane.
Halloween Fest.
Oh,
Yeah,
forget
right.
about it.
Well, that's in Key West. This is the northern.
And
part of the-
biker week.
Well, Biker Week, I don't know so
You
much about.
can't get down to
Oh,
the-
God, all the women are naked and all tattooed.
Right,
Really?
well,
Oh, yeah.
and so Halloween
That's
Fest,
what
all the
Halloween
men are
Fest is
naked and
like.
tattooed.
Both, yeah.
So-
And the women
Yeah,
paint themselves
my
so
friend
they
and his
think they're
wife
wearing
used to
something.
bike down there with their Harley, and they were like, whew.
Well, it's getting probably
Key
more
West,
and
you
more.
see it all.
Well, I think that's
But
great.
Mazel
Thank
tov.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you. I'm excited for her because she's very happy.
Good.
That's good.
All
She
right,
was
so
surprised.
what's our topic of the morning? Eleanor, you're the font of all knowledge.
Am I? You are now.
Yeah.
Well, I think a little bit more should be said about what Muriel said last night about how you choose a caregiving group and what you get from it.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people out there are afraid to go to caregiver groups. They're a little bit held back because they don't want to face reality. And it's like Muriel had said last night. You look around till you find one that is good for you. And you listen and you get a lot of knowledge that you were not aware of. I speak from experience because when I first came here,
Oh my gosh. Murray came. And he's wearing his tidy whities.
He's late.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but he swore that he wasn't going to be here.
Right.
Where is he?
All right.
Well,
At least it helps
you need to
balance
talk
the
louder,
equation.
please.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So you were saying many people
Don't
possibly
want
are in
to-
denial about
Yes.
about facing their issue?
yes,
Or-
because I was. It was my daughter who checked into the Alzheimer's Association to question what help was out there. They, in turn, had recommended 5 different places in the area,
Mhm.
and one they really spoke about was the one that you ran by name. They spoke about David Levy.
Mhm.
And she sat down with me and said, I think you should go to one of these. And I says, why? I don't need it.
Isn't that everybody's
Yeah.
initial
Yeah.
response?
Yes.
And she left the paper, went back to New York, and she says, well, if you change your mind. And I picked up the paper, and there were 5 names. One was very close to me. Didn't sound like something I wanted. And I chose the group you ran. I was a little late getting into your group because I went to the wrong building. I did not know that it had 2 buildings down there. And you greeted me, and I apologized for being late. And you said, don't worry about it, just have a seat. Someone called me in, sit down. And I sat there cowardly. What am I doing here?
Right.
And the reception I got from the group made me want to come back. And everyone, as I left, hope I'll see you. And you said the same thing to me. And I said, yes, you will. And that was the best thing that I ever did. I naturally listened in the beginning, and then I heard people say what I was going through. And then I realized I was among people that were going through what I did, and that I did need the support. I think a lot of us are in that situation, are in denial. I didn't realize I was taking care of my husband for 3 years.
You realized it, but you may not have realized the role.
That's the whole thing.
Right. You were still in wife mode, not necessarily
That's
caregiver
exactly
mode.
it.
I would like to add to that very much your experience. I think many people don't know that there is such a thing as caregivers, help, caregiver meetings, caregiver groups. I know I, for one, didn't know anything about it until my husband went to the daycare. And he was there just a few weeks, and somebody at the desk said, "Why don't you go to the meeting?" Which I knew nothing about, and it was Naval at the same building, in the same building. And I went for the first time, knowing nothing about it, completely ignorant of what it meant, because, as you say, I had been taking care of Morris for 5 years as a wife. Only as a wife, I thought, not realizing that I was a caregiver. And I didn't know anything about it until I came to the group, which I've been attending for 3.5 years, because I gained so much, learned so much, even after he died. I'm still learning and realizing that all of the things that I experienced are all part of what Alzheimer's is. Different ways, different symptoms for different people, but how it affects each one of us. And the group has made it, I can't say pleasant, but enlightening and helpful, and made me strong in understanding what I did, how I did, whether I did it right or wrong. There are so many answers that you can only get from a caregiving group, and I think ours excels. I can't compare it to anything else, but I know how much each one of us has gained and learned, even though they're still in the process of being caregivers. I am not, but I'm still learning. And I can only thank David and the group and the filming and every process that we've gone through since coming here.
Well said, Betty.
Yes.
Well, it comes from my
I'd like
heart.
to make just a quick point. We talked about family, how the group was like family. And I think I would just like to point out the way this meeting started and the trouble we had getting serious, because we had 10 or 15 minutes of just fooling around and telling jokes and laughing and everything else, and it was like, okay, now it's time to get serious. But that just shows what happened over the years and how close we've become and how much fun we have together. So it's not all tears and distress.
I, for one, don't think I would have gotten this far without this group.
I agree.
That my daughter going on the computer, looking up about Alzheimer's, and they being so helpful.
What made you choose this one out of the 5?
I don't know. You know, I always say, like, my way of thinking is there's always a reason something gets done.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, I was geared to this group. And that was the best thing that happened to me. As you all know, I've come a long way.
Baby.
Buddy had, was not in the nursing home as long as most of people have. And when that happened, you were all there for me. Then I ended up in the hospital, and this group was there for me. I don't think I could have gotten this far without this kind of group. And it's a shame that a lot of people don't realize that a support group is just what it says, support.
Support, yes.
And the thing that I found, in the beginning I said nothing, and as I listened to people give their views of what they actually felt, I felt free to say what I felt without feeling that someone was going to be criticizing me or condemning me. Because everyone at the table had either been through it or would be through it. And I do feel this is an unusual group. I call it my family. And I have people ask me, Buddy passed away, why do you still go? And I said, because I still get a lot out of it, and maybe I can contribute something to someone else.
I want to say something. I went to another meeting before I came to this group. And there are other meetings. It was much smaller. The problem that and I went several times, seemed that people tend to say the same things over and over again in small groups. And they weren't giving, they threw out some ideas, but when I came to the meeting, the big meeting, which was Roberta who brought me, it did feel like a different group. I was a little shy, and Marion and I came in at the same time, and she had a whole lot more problems than I did. So, I sort of sat back, but I will say that there were Murray and I don't remember who else, but gave me ideas of things to do, how to I mean, this is going to sound funny, but how to get him to move from underwear to pull-ups. I mean, it sounds basic.
We're still having that problem.
It sounds so basic, but it really isn't easy when someone doesn't feel that they need that help.
Yes.
And he was aware at that time, so that helped me to sneak him into it.
Well,
But
I just have to say something. I came here late only because I didn't expect to be here this morning.
that's what we.
I was taking somebody to the other group, a newcomer. But as I told David when I spoke with you last night, I really didn't think that was the right group for her.
Okay.
I think she really needed a bereavement group because her husband died, not from Alzheimer's, not from any type of dementia, but he lasted a few days, but I think it was a heart condition that he had. And I knew him very well. I knew him because we were on the same pool team together. But let me say this. I come to this group not because I need it. I really don't need it. But it's family, like you said before. And if I can help somebody, that's what I'm here for.
Exactly.
And I tried it. I tried it at our other group, and I feel every so often that I may add something that helps somebody.
Then you do.
And it is such an important thing to have a group like this.
And that's what caregiving is about, helping
That's
other
what-
people.
Yes, and we here, the people that are here now, still going through problems. There's no question about it. But you add so much to help people.
Yes.
It's really wonderful. It really is.
I'd like to add,
Oh, Betty?
sorry,
I just wanted to say, I'd never heard the word caregiver.
right,
I think that when I started to take care of my husband or whatever it was, I was his wife, and like they say, in sickness and in health, and you just automatically do these things. I never looked at the word caregiver. But once he really got to a point where he couldn't stay home, or he needed some activity which I could not give him, and he went into Mayvolan, and I came to the group because I was told of the group. And I looked at it completely differently, but I also felt so welcome. Really welcome, and it was a different family than it is now. But it didn't make any difference because everybody there was in the same boat as me. Everybody there had similar problems, some worse than others, but I was comfortable with the people that I had. And as the years came along and this grew into what it is now, I can't tell you how much I look forward to every single Wednesday.
I do too.
It has
I do
become a big part of my
Every
life.
day I set the alarm clock.
That's why. That's why I'm here today. I took the lady home. She was not comfortable, putting it mildly, in the ambiance of Grand Villa with the people there. And I said, I'll take you home. Whatever you want to go, I says, don't worry about it. And I took her home, but I had to come back here. I dropped her off and came right back here
Good.
because this is my group. This is my home.
This is your day.
This
This is
is-
your special day.
I see, when I joined the group, I think my experiences were a little different. I think I was really drowning,
Yes, you were.
and the care that I was giving my husband, which I also didn't see as caregiving, it was a wife taking care of a sick
Of
husband.
course.
But I used to say as a joke to my sister and to friends that it's one day it's going to be a murder-suicide. because it was so draining on me.
Overwhelming.
So overwhelming. And I didn't see an end at the light of that tunnel until I came to this group and I was given permission to consider putting him in a nursing home. Because when I broached the subject with my son, it was, oh, no, it's not that bad.
The norm.
He doesn't
And-
live it. He doesn't
Yeah,
live it.
That's the norm.
he wasn't living day to day. He didn't see what was going on, and I didn't have any other family down here, and not many friends close enough. So when I came here and I got the understanding that it really was better for him, which it turned out to be, although it took months to get to that point, at least I knew that it was a possibility, and I got the financial steps started so that I could afford to put him into a place. And, but it was the support of the people here. And the feeling that, although he does not have Alzheimer's and he has dementia, it was a similarity in caregiving, the stress on the person, having to be there 24/7, not having a life of your own, not being able to play a game of canasta without getting a phone call that some emergency happened, that he's fallen or this or that, and he had to have me. So I think that it really saved me from I don't know what, because my health was really endangered.
Yeah, I remember you were going through such a hardship. Your husband was falling and falling and
And falling,
falling.
yeah.
Right.
I
You were
don't know
sleeping.
how you stood it, and you didn't feel good yourself.
Right.
I
You
wasn't
were-
sleeping. The big thing
No.
was the sleep deprivation.
Well,
No,
you-
the
you
bigger
had-
thing was you never knew when he was going to fall
Yes,
next. I
right.
remember one day you came back and said to me, "Do you know that he fell right between the
Yes,
curb
I remember that.
and the car stopped?
Right.
But for 2 inches on
Yeah.
either
Parking
side,
lot, yeah.
he would have been
But
gone."
it was so constant, the falling.
Right.
How many times he fell in the bathroom
Yes.
Yeah.
with his head in the shower and the trunk of his body in the bathroom with that metal track.
Oh,
And he had neck surgery on his neck, and it was just a miracle that he didn't paralyze himself or God knows what.
but how did you get him up?
Most of the times I had to call
Paramedics?
911.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to address one of the issues that we talked about, and that was how do we deal with pain as caregivers? Do you remember that section?
Physical pain or emotional?
Emotional.
Emotional pain.
Oh, that was it.
There are many, not many, but some who are dealing with physical pain as well on their own, but I'm talking of emotional pain. I thought that was an extremely important meeting because aside from caring for the loved one and experiencing the emotional pain, it was something that we had to control and accept and handle so that we could go on and be the good caregivers that was needed and we were able to do, all because of the group. Each one had different pain for different reasons, with family, with the spouse, with making decisions about whether or not a facility is necessary, how to go about it, what to do financially, emotionally, anyway. But that session, I think, about handling pain is what this entire group is about, and how we learn from each other and how we help each other with compassion and support. And I think that's why this group, I don't know about any other group, but this group is so vital and so exceptional.
Fantastic.
Yes, it is, because I know that if we hear of anything going wrong with any of us.
Yes.
Right.
We're
We're
on
there.
the phone calling.
Yes.
Right.
How
We're there.
are you? What can I
Yes.
do? That is
Yes.
very
It-
It's
unusual.
beautiful.
It is.
It's a
It
beautiful
really is
group.
unusual, and everybody is there willing to help.
Yeah, it's a lot of compassion.
And we need that.
Of
Yes,
course,
we
you
all
know.
need desperately.
One of the things I think, it just from my perspective, both as being a caregiver as well as running groups, is following. First of all, it's a lousy word in the sense of you don't know what it's supposed to mean.
Right.
People use caregiver, people use caretaker, caregivers wear white hats, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're Indian chiefs, whatever it may be. And then, as each of you have said, where is the dividing line between the relationship of being a spouse? When does it turn into the role of being a caregiver? And how important really is that? But for somebody who's been studying this for 27 years, it's very important, because bearing the burden as a spouse doesn't allow you the flexibility of really being able to share, all right? And when you become part of a group who are caregivers, for lack of a better word, it gives you kind of become part of the tribe. All right, and that allows you, all right, as you said, whether it's the permission, whether it's the support, and it doesn't make a difference, although most people here were dealing with some aspect of dementia. When you're a caregiver, it's because I didn't hear one of you say anything about the physical aspect of care. You know what I'm saying? And we always talk about it's 15% understanding the disease and 85% all the other stuff. Whether it's figuring out how to finance it, whether it's figuring out what's the proper place to go, whether you do have permission from what you consider to be your peers and your friends to do things that you never thought you could do, or swore right after your marital vows, I will never let you go into or I will not
Yes,
allow
famous words.
famous
Never
last
happened,
words.
yeah.
And at the time
Yes,
that we
me too.
said it, none of us were looking down the road to say, what will it be like 40, 50 years from now?
We could never fathom.
No.
Right. And we live with a lot of myth, as I said, and stereotype. One of the biggest problems that we even have is trying to identify the players. Most people have a very difficult time even with the word senior.
Yes.
Right.
Am I really a senior or am I just over 65? And
mother
do I
never
feel
wondered
that way? Do I look that way?
Yeah.
What is a senior?
Right.
Okay, what is a caregiver? All right, and it's been my experience, especially in the last couple of months, as I've gotten involved with the financial community in creating some care-aware products, because these are people that, and you've heard me mention a little bit on the show, Paul and I talk about it, because these are people's trusted advisors. All right, at least to the extent you trust them with your finances. They're usually your go-to person. It could be your attorney, it could be your CPA, it could be whatever. And yet, in a day and age where we are all aging, and young and old, and we talk about the word denial, our advisors are in denial in the sense that they don't necessarily want to bring those subjects up for fear of scaring you, for fear of showing maybe their shortcomings in knowing what to do. And so we've been embraced pretty significantly, because what's beginning to happen is the regulators, the FINRA and the people that do accrediting, etc., are saying, if these advisors don't have a conversation with their clients, more than just what's your retirement look like, but what does your retirement look like if you live 15 more years? What does your retirement look like if you don't have long-term care insurance and can't buy it now, and you have somebody that needs to be in a facility? Yesterday we did a seminar for a really wonderful group called Purposeful Planning Institute. They're out of Denver, and they're about 180 very high-end wealth managers, lawyers, accountants, doctors, etc., who believe in a very collaborative effort to understand what the others are doing and to try and drive a level of excellence by
Right.
having,
That's what
just
we need.
collaborative interfacing. And we brought to them the subject of caregiving. And they had announced that they do a weekly, online seminar. I don't mean on the computer, but it's a call-in. And interestingly enough, they had more people on for this one than they've had on for a great deal of time. And the folks that we were talking to were exactly, who I represented in the sense of wealth managers. And they all said, well, my client has plenty of money. And I said, wouldn't it be great if money solved the problem? And they said, what do you mean? I said, okay, so you have a lot of money. Is it going to take away any of the conflict that you have in a second marriage, dealing with the first marriage's kids?
The pain.
And is it going to make the fact that you are now isolated, or that, and I wasn't even couching it in terms of Alzheimer's, I was just saying chronic care.
Generally.
Right. And the imposition on who, do you think, I remember, and the quote I used was, I remember when Rose Kennedy had reached a certain point where her aging and dementia and some of the other things that she suffered from, they set up at Hyannis as well as down here when they still had their Palm Beach
Right.
enclave, as it
Right.
were, the best that money could buy. But yet you would hear Eunice and some of the others, the
Maria.
Kennedys, Maria Shriver, talk about the difficulty and what they went through. And here was a family that could afford
Anything.
That's right.
anything they wanted, and they set up literally a nursing home in
their home.
both places. But they realized that money did not bring the relief. It may have brought a certain level of care, but
It didn't
what
bring the
people
health
kept
back.
forgetting
Didn't solve the solution.
is that
No.
the care is focused at the patient.
Yes.
The emotional
Not the money.
issues are focused at the caregiver.
Right.
And that, I think, at times, Eleanor, when you said, I didn't know which group to go to, or last night, Muriel, on the show, when you said, I went to one or I went to a couple and it was 4 people talking about you're an anchor, is that I think that the subject of recognizing caregiving as non-clinical, which has always been my mantra, because it's not a disease, so we don't have a pill for it, is a very important distinction that not a lot of people truly understand. That what you're going through isn't medical, all right? And everybody goes through their angst their own way. Everybody's family dynamics are their own. Everybody's financial is their own. Everybody's unique disease and relationship to the
Excuse me,
person.
what do you mean it's not medical?
Well, I'm not saying at times that you do not have medical problems
Okay.
resulting from the stress.
Okay.
But where did the stress come from? In not knowing what to do.
What to do,
In
yeah.
feeling isolated and feeling
You're kinda
alone.
lost.
And not understanding your options. And looking to create in your own mind this level of perfection that you're supposed to have. To be, as I always say, the Florence Nightingale and Mother Teresa of caregiving, and sometimes you don't even know you're in that role.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
Like
And
me.
so, when you turn around and say, not blowing my own horn, but most people that lead support groups come out of a clinical background. They're social workers, maybe they're geriatric care managers, psychologists, and I take nothing away from them. But where in their training, and you've heard me say this over and over again, did they ever take a course in really looking at the caregiver other than somebody who may have psychological or psychiatric or clinical issues, but they don't necessarily relate it back to the problem-solving aspect of caregiving? And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to find a good group. Not because the people aren't willing, but I think we have a long way to go in educating facilitators to get off of the one-story mantra. Read the 36-hour day. You know, you're their anchor. Never leave them alone. Get a Wanda bracelet. Is a lot about your loved one. Damn little
Is there a
about
law?
you.
Is there a law about leaving a person alone that's got dementia, Alzheimer's?
Well, I think that if you look in the state of Florida and you are aware that somebody has dementia at a level where they could be a threat to themselves or others, then I think that elder abuse or, you know,
Would enter.
might enter into the scheme of things. It's really a question of understanding in this sense, it is understanding the disease, but having a sense of, can I truly leave this person alone? All right? How, if somebody came in objectively from Adult Protective Services or a psychologist or somebody who tried objectively to look and say, all right, what is the emotional age? What is the practical capability of this individual were I to leave him alone? Would he go in a drawer and take out a knife and cut his wrist because he didn't even know what a knife was? Could he turn on the stove and leave it on and cause a, you know, the usual, I'm just using the
Sometimes you
usual
don't know.
stuff.
No, you
And
just don't know what they're gonna do.
And you don't
That's the
know.
problem.
How does that relate? My neighbor, her husband has a physical disability,
Mhm.
and he really is disabled, and he can walk with a walker, but she is stuck with him 24/7. Although she has a woman who comes in, he calls her every 10 or 15 minutes if she leaves the house
Okay.
to find out what
Wow.
So she, this morning, was doing a walk. There was no one with him. She felt guilty. Would she be considered elder abuse?
Well,
I mean, she walked
first of
forward
all,
and-
that might be to some degree.
It's very technical.
Well, but let's break it out into much simpler
Yeah.
form, all right? First of all, the dependency issue of every 10 minutes, where are you,
Yeah.
where are you? And
Scared.
it's not
He's scared.
Alzheimer's.
It's not scary.
He may be scared to be alone,
Yeah.
but it sounds
But
like...
I was
not-
with him, and he still was doing
all right,
that.
notwithstanding the need of the walker, could he pick up the phone and dial 911?
Yeah.
Okay, so that if he felt that he had an issue, all right, that was not something that his wife was immediately there
For him.
for him, and the level of codependency, you hear so many people say, well, you know, my husband and I, my wife and I never did anything that
Alone.
wasn't the two of us.
Yeah, right.
We
I've
were
heard that so many
attached at the
times.
hip right after I said I do. And then carry that through whatever may be the chronic illness or, you know, where you are 50 years down the line, so to speak. But then you have to say to yourself, when we were attached at the hip and we went to the Grand Canyon or we went to the Caymans or we did this, we were both healthy.
Exactly.
All right? We both enjoyed each other's company. It was a great relationship and it was fun. All right? Now, it's a dependency relationship. And I'm denying myself a lot of things in the name of the relationship.
Yeah, so they get depressed.
All right, and yet, I do not suffer from the disease that my spouse has.
Big deal, big
So,
difference.
do I have to get down to the level of being their co-equal in not doing anything because they can't?
Right.
All right, and I think, you know, you got to begin to draw some distinctions about the autonomy of your own life, some of your own happiness, and not reflect it off of the fact that your spouse or whoever your significant other may be can't do it. All right, I think that we all have our lives to lead, not to the exclusion of our spouses, but I think in fairness to ourselves, and I think that gets lost in the shuffle a lot of times, that we do not know how to treat ourselves,
Sure.
all right, to take
Well,
a
that's a
little
guilt
joy
thing.
in the moment, to have the
I
opportunity.
think women feel more guilty than men because
Maybe not. Look up-
women are always nurturing all the time. They're mommies all the time. It never stops.
Oh,
But
did I
my-
get out of my role?
But my question is, say somebody is elderly, in their 80s, late 80s. They can hardly walk,
Right.
and they're left alone.
Mhm.
What happens there? What's your
Well,
thoughts?
now what you're doing is you're making fact-specific patterns. If they can't walk and there's a danger because you have candles lit under the Christmas tree, that's one thing. If they can't walk, you've parked them in front of the TV in the Barker Lounger, and you're going out for a 30-minute walk. You have your cell phone, whether or not they can communicate or not, or say, Siri, call my wife, if, under those set of circumstances. I don't think that you present a danger. I
No.
think some of the danger is
Even if the person's out for a long, long time?
well, now, once again, we're back to facts.
Yeah.
All right, can you be away for an hour and not an hour and a half? That's really a very subjective determination that you have to make. I think going back to the beginning of this conversation is one of the reasons that we all get such a benefit out of having a group like this is because it's a place to smile.
Yes.
It's a place to
To vent.
share.
To vent.
It's a place to say, I had a crappy day
Yeah.
without having everybody, but think about your husband.
Yeah.
I do think
No.
about my husband, but don't you think it's a little time I think
For
about
me?
me too?
Yeah.
All right, and I think that's what an effective support group does. And Murray, yes, you're absolutely right that you have something to contribute,
Yes,
in
definitely.
looking back.
Yeah.
But I think you also forget the fact that as a human being, the comfort of being around people you're comfortable with,
No question
not
about
that isn't the case, between you and Myrna, rather, excuse me. But this is just the bigger example
No question.
of the smaller dynamic, and the fact that I look forward to it, not because there's anything monetarily to gain. I do it because it's so damn comfortable for
Yes.
me, and I enjoy
I
seeing.
love this class.
It's a
Full of
place where you
love.
can open up your
Yes,
heart.
true. Let
And
it
nobody
out.
judges
And let
you.
it
Right.
all
And not have
come
anybody
out.
walk on it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like Eleanor said,
One
no
of the things
judging.
that we have that maybe other groups don't have, or do have, and that's this group in particular, is I think that Marion and I are the newest members. And do you remember how long we've been part of this? At
It's
least
just
3
about
years.
3 years.
Let's
Yeah.
see.
I know it was October.
Roosevelt died in
I adopted Jeannie
Yeah.
just before I started the group.
That's
So I
her
know
cat.
It's just
Oh.
about 3 years.
That's my daughter.
Okay.
I mean, and that's it. You get to know people,
Oh, yeah.
and people know
and
you.
people
Yes.
know
Right.
me. And
It's a
Right.
wonderful,
It's
it's
so
a
much
wonderful
is-
feeling. It
so
really
much
is.
has happened.
when people come and then they stay for 2 months and then they leave, they're not going to get
They're
the
not
same.
getting
Right.
anything.
But it's also the cycle of life,
Yes, ups and downs.
because we've been here so long, we've been through Muriel's surgery and her recovery, my surgery, Robin having good news about her daughter,
Yes.
Bernice's service with her daughter.
And we all
was
care
up
to
and down.
listen.
Right.
Yes,
And no,
that's
I know
right.
that if I say I'm going to bring something up with my sister, that's
It's
not,
safe.
it's not specifically share giving, but it's people who know my background and who know what I've gone through.
You
So-
didn't realize it, but you just made a very interesting Freudian slip. And you called it share giving.
Ah,
And that's exactly what
it
it is.
is.
Because it's not always about care.
No.
It's about,
That's good.
all right, so share giving is actually a very wonderful
I love
word
that.
if you stop and think about it. Yeah, all right,
It's on
see?
film, I'm trademarking.
I know definitely of 2 people who have joined our group. And I don't want to pat myself on the
No,
back.
we'll
You might
do it.
bruise yourself.
However, they joined because their families had heard me speak so highly and so well, and how much I gained from this group. during the short time that Morris was here and the short time that we were together, and then after he died, they heard me speak so well of everything, about me, about Morris, about the illness, about the caring, the sharing, and learning that these two people joined the group because of what they had heard, not talking about any confidence, however, just in general, speaking so well of what I gained from this group before, during, after. And so these people are coming to the group now, and I know how much they benefit and how much, I hate to use the word enjoy, but how much they are happy to be here. They look forward to it, and if they can't come, it's because of a good reason. But it has meant a lot to them because of how much I have talked about what everybody gains by coming here.
It's amazing how we sit here and we laugh.
Yes.
We do laugh, and a number of us here still have our spouses. So no, there's some of us here still have spouses, and more than spouses. Bernice, for instance, has other problems as well, as we all know. But it's wonderful how we can laugh at times here,
Yes.
even with our problems.
We have to.
And we share
We
it.
have to be
I
able
have
to
shared
laugh.
it with you.
But not everybody can, and you do.
Yes,
And you
yes.
do.
And one thing, and then, because I certainly don't want to be accused, as I am at times, of dominating the conversation.
No. No, who accused you?
Is that bad?
But I think for the people that will be able to watch this, I think the important thing is that finding a good support group can be difficult, all right?
I've been
As you
to
said,
bad ones.
even here in South Florida, where we probably have more of it, or at least as much as anywhere else.
Yeah.
All support groups don't look alike.
No.
All support groups don't do the same thing, all right? You have support groups like AA, all right, that are there to support people day to day to day so that hopefully they don't take a drink or they don't do drugs or whatever the situation may be. There are support groups for bereavement, all right, that run in a certain way and have a conclusion. I think one of the things that we have done with this group and with the more expanded group is we've broken out of a mold that says you go for a certain amount of time, all right? You learn this, you learn that, your spouse passes away and that's it, all right? And I think the essence of a support group is first they take you to the dance, even though you may have arrived by yourself. Then you find somebody to dance with, euphemistically. The music's over, but when you go home, you're not alone. I don't mean that your date went home with you, but you know what I'm saying. There's more than just the dance, all right? There's life during and after, whatever it is you first came to the support group for. And as we move forward in life, one of the things I hear a lot of people say is, well, I've lost my spouse and now I'm lonely, all right? Or this has happened and I can't make new friends. I think the friendship that has arisen from our support groups are just as important in a follow-on as it was in the initial reason that you might have come to find out things, to look for insight, and then be able to share and care and do the things that we do. And I think that's the essence of a great support group.
I think we'll always be friends.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that goes without saying, but I think the fact that we can come and sit down and say,
And be ourselves.
well, not only to be yourselves, which is absolutely, I think, one of the most, because the last thing anybody needs is somebody putting on a facade.
Yeah.
All right, if you don't want to talk about it, tell it like it is,
Yeah.
get down, get
I don't wanna talk.
mud on your feet,
Right.
then don't come. All right, because nobody needs somebody to make up stories. It's
No.
one thing if you don't want to sit and talk that day, or you don't feel you have something to contribute, and everybody has an opinion about something, and I think that's the thing that's so good about a great support group is you can speak your mind and say, I don't disagree, you painted everybody with the same brush, whatever the circumstance may be. But I think the important thing to show people is that a great support group builds on itself. When I got started doing these, I had 2 or 3 people. Even sometimes when I do art on an afternoon, when it's not the full Friday group, so to speak, and there's 2, 3, 4 people there. Yesterday, there was a woman there that didn't know why she was even supposed to be there, but one in the group, finally after 3, 4, 5 weeks, dragged her there.
Okay.
And it was the classic, I'm angry. Really angry. I'm angry at my husband, I'm angry at the disease. And it was such a familiar kind of...
Yeah, well, we had somebody in our
Everybody
class like
goes through
that.
that.
Right.
Everybody goes through that. And so I put in my 2 cents, but really the other 3 people that have been part of the group for a while got into the whole thing with her. I just sat back. At 3:15 I had to leave for the radio show because I knew that Muriel couldn't find her way.
That was his,
That was Paul's problem. But the point I'm making is, I walked out, and they were
They
still going at it. They didn't need any more facilitation.
Well, did the woman listen?
Not only did she listen, she didn't leave.
Oh.
All right, and her husband was next door, and she never left her husband anywhere without her, and he was next
So she was
door,
comfortable.
in where they were doing recreation and socializing. And I heard later, because I called one of the group, and I said, when did it end up? Because I left at 3:15. She said 4 o'clock. They threw us out of there.
Wow,
Because the session was over in terms of
Nice to hear good things.
keeping her spouse there. And she said, she can't wait to come back. And it wasn't me. It was the
They were
people that
helping
have
her.
learned how
Like we
to
do.
recognize in others what they've been through and to say, look, you're not alone.
Yes.
You're entitled to be mad. You can even question what you're even doing here. And one of the remarks she made, and I'm so much younger than you people. And then 2 people said, well, and she said, I'm older than that. So she couldn't even kind of segregate herself on age. So as Pogo said, we are they. But it was very, very rewarding for her and very rewarding
That's
for
beautiful.
me
That is beautiful.
that these things run
need
on
more of that.
autopilot.
We
You
do.
know, and it's very, and I say that to the world. It doesn't take a lot to start a group. The success of a group is successfully following through on it. All right? Many times groups only get together once a month. You lose a lot in the gap. Maybe everybody is in a position to do it once a week the way we do, but there's a lot to be gained from the comfort of knowing, well, Wednesdays, I'm with the
That's our
family.
day. Yes,
You
that's
know,
true.
and-
I think that the friendships formed, the relationships starting and then become friendships, I think they endure much more, much longer than some ordinary, I say ordinary friendships, because there is so much binding us together, passionately, emotionally, every which way, socially. These will always endure and always be there. And I think the friendship grows stronger with each year.
Well, if you stop to think, and then I'm going to shut up and you can speak, but if you stop to think about who are your really handful of great friends that you can share anything with, always could,
Not
the good, the
like
bad, and the
this.
ugly,
Not
all
like
right?
this.
And that's what's come out of here. Everybody kind of respectfully knows everybody's dirty laundry of what they've come through, and nobody sits in judgment of it. So it's totally open to be shared. And I think that's part of why it works as well.
I have a very close friend whose sister, younger than we are, she's in her early 60s, lost her husband about 5 years ago. She is so totally helpless. Now, it wasn't from dementia. I mean, he had cancer, it's a whole different thing. But the way she's unable to deal with her change in life, and the way she can't do anything is on the phone with her sister constantly. How do you do this? How do you do that? Did you ever try Googling? Or, she's just like helpless. How do I apply for Medicare? What do I have to do? She's driven all her friends away. Like her friends are just disappearing because she's helpless.
Too needy.
She's
Yes.
too needy.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a turn off to people. The point that I think I'm trying to make is had she had a group, not this group, because dementia wasn't part of it, to help her during the process of when her husband had the cancer and they were going through all of this, and then when he ultimately died, I can't imagine any of us being the way she is.
No.
And just
Well,
driving
because we've already
people
had
away.
to take over so much of.
Well, he did everything.
I
He
was gonna say,
spoiled. He
yeah.
did
And when
everything.
she had cancer,
He
he
spoiled her, so
But
she's
you know,
lost.
You have to realize that someday
You may have to
you may
dance
have
by
to.
yourself.
Yeah,
That's where she
I
like
asked
that.
my first
That's
husband when
nice.
I was 30-something. He took care of all the finances, and I said, you take care of everything, all the bills, all the checks. I've never done anything since we're married. What if something happened to you? What would I have to do? And his answer to me was, you write a check, you sign your name, you mail it, done. that was his response.
Add hot water.
But the point was, and then when he died, I was 40, 41, all of a sudden, everything was on me. I had 2 teenage children, and everything was on me, and you know what?
You did it.
I guess maybe I was a different personality.
Yes.
I had to do it. I did
You
it.
were you did it all to and I moved it on her computer, and here are all the cards with all of this and
Keep her
that.
busy.
Not so much to keep her busy, but she said the
learn.
same thing. If you drop dead tomorrow, what bills do I have to pay?
Right.
Where do they come from? And because not everything arrives in the mail anymore,
No.
or you get it online. I mean, we live in a different
Yeah.
day and age. And, Marion now has a phone that lets her read her email, that lets her pay her bills, lets her do this and do that. Yes, she's doing it.
That's the extra
An
life.
I-6 biggie. But the point remains is that
Nice.
what would have been acceptable with the big old checkbook in the 60s and the 70s doesn't work in 2014.
Yeah. It's so advanced.
And the fact is, none of us are going to live forever. And the survivor still needs to survive. I'm sorry, Mar, I didn't mean to bring you
No,
that
we're gonna
message
clone.
today.
We're gonna clone you. Don't worry.
Right.
Well, I never felt angry. I felt scared. That was my initial
I did too, because I
was
never took care of the checkbook or
because Jay
that.
used to do a lot of
Never.
things, and I said to myself, "Wow, what do I do now?" Well, you know what?
You're doing it.
I'm doing it.
And more.
I always say, "You
Call
never."
your sister.
kn- That's
Does
very
her
true.
taxes.
She is great.
Yeah.
She's very good at that. But get me a room near Jay. I forgot what I was going
We were talking about how you had to learn to do things.
and I always say that you never know what you're capable
Exactly.
of until
Well, we're
you're put
stronger
in that
than we
position,
think.
and
We are.
boy, do you rise
Yes.
Yep.
to the occasion.
I had the same experience, and I learned. Fortunately, if I needed any assistance, any questions, my son is available. But I just want to mention one thing about how being in this group, even for newcomers, I think how it has taught them, affected them, I don't know what word to use, but you weren't here, David, when I mentioned something about my daughter. You weren't here then, that time. And many people said, oh, we never knew you had a daughter. Okay, well, she's in California, and when she left home at 18, she never came back to the family to live. However, she never cut herself off in the sense cutting off, but we didn't see as much of her. I'm not going to go into that, but I mentioned these things and at that time. when we're talking about certain things being painful. And the reason I'm mentioning this, one of the people who was new, very new to our group, heard what I said. And I don't know why, and I have a relationship with my daughter, although it is mostly over the telephone, but it is still a loving relationship. But unfortunately, we don't see each other physically. And the person in our group, heard this. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, when the meeting was over, he looked at me and he said very quietly, "How is your relationship with your daughter?" And I thought this was so kind. And it showed, first of all, that he's paying attention. Secondly, he cared enough to ask me, which he's brand new. Okay? And I said, "It's fine," which it is. It's not what I would want to have her here physically where I could touch her. But it's fine. I speak with her, and whatever the situation was, I can hear when she reveals certain things. I could hear the relief in her voice because she
It's still
knew.
Mom.
She finally.
It's Mom. Daddy isn't here. And she knew that I loved her unconditionally. And that was the thing that I brought out. But for this person to say to me after being here a short time, "How is your relationship?" The fact that he included.
Do you think that maybe he had a similar situation?
I don't
You
know.
don't know,
I
but
don't
that's one of the
know.
reasons that it's a very strong possibility
Right.
that he asked.
I want to add one last thing.
Okay.
That I think Robin was mentioning, or Bernice, the people in the group are the issue. When we met at that other unnamed bad place,
It wasn't bad.
It wasn't until, you know,
wasn't good either.
It was time to part company.
Yes, it
but
wasn't
we
good.
had a member, a gentleman, and in certain ways he was very abrasive. And I remember so clearly, and it was so hurtful to me, day that Betty was crying. I don't know, those of you who remember. I think Morris had just passed recently. And you were saying what a wonderful life you had had with him. And it happened to be that no one was sitting next to you. You remember what I'm talking about? And
I do.
I couldn't stand it. It's something in me, whatever. I couldn't stand it. I got up and I went all
went
the way
over.
around the table to hold your hand and to hug you. And this person accused, maybe not accused, in my mind it was an accusation, said that I was doing it, to take the attention on myself, which was the last thing I intended.
No.
And it was very hurtful to me that he even said that.
Of course.
And it's the people in the group now, to our betterment, he left the group for other reasons. But it is the people in the group, and it is possible that you might have someone in your group who is not helping the journal.
You generally find that it's very self-selected. If you're not wanted, you know it.
Yeah.
And even though that particular individual was there for a while in sackcloth and ashes, he also had another agenda, everybody else's wallet. And to that extent,
And he
everybody was smart
supposedly
enough
was
to...
a psychiatrist.
Right, and
No.
he wore a lot of
Hats.
hats, most of which he didn't deserve.
No.
But that's neither here nor there, because when you assemble a group of people, how did we get down to this or the other group? It's because over a period of time, we have gained, we have lost, some for reasons that have nothing more to do than they moved away, found something else to do, and others because they recognized they didn't fit, they couldn't be the leader of the band, because anybody here can lead that parade. You know what I'm saying? You're all capable of...
I have to say one thing to that, and this, don't take this wrongly, but you lead 3 groups that I'm aware of, maybe 4. And as far as I know, they're all successful.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason other than just the people. I mean, I belong to 2 of your groups.
Right.
And you just said that the 3rd group, which is a different one, is successful. They know how to, so maybe it has something to do with you.
I would
No maybe about
Well said. Well said.
it. No maybe about it. We've been saying that for a long
years.
time. There is nobody, let me just finish this, David. I know you don't like to be slapped on the back all the time, but there is nobody more knowledgeable than you when it comes to leading a group and giving people information as
Right.
far as
That's
facilities where.
All the way around.
And,
We have to
and you
clone
do it
David.
without.
Yes,
I always
yes.
said
Read
that.
my mind.
Forget you, Mary, we're not cloning you, we're cloning him.
Well,
I always said we should clone you.
Yes, yes.
well, what can one say? I thank you very much, but, understand one thing. I have made this my profession.
Yes, all right.
And I have done this for a long time in the sense that I was way out in front of the Indians. I'm also a caregiver, and when you hear me speak and do things, you know how passionate I am, and to whatever degree, without blowing my own horn, I care about each and every one of you. Anybody can call up and say, and I've heard from many of you in the last couple of days, everybody has an issue. I never say go figure it out.
Was
I
your
try and
family
jump in.
loving and caring like you?
I had a very, very loving mother.
Ah,
My
me
father
too.
and I danced a different dance
Yeah.
for a while, but then we
Mine
came
too.
back to the relationship. I'm very close with my sister. I'm very close with my daughter.
Good.
I care about people.
Are you a
Yeah, that's
Cancer?
wonderful.
But
Are
I'm
you-
a Sag.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's my husband.
wow.
Yeah, I like to
Right.
travel.
And I'm looking at the pained look on Freddie's face.
Like the
because
show.
because we've run a little over time, and I think this has been a phenomenal conversation. I think those that will have the opportunity to see it will again appreciate what we started last night. Muriel, again, thank you for being on the show. The importance of a support group, and it's not just the support group. It's the people that are in it. It's the longevity.
Yes.
It's the commitment. It's the caring. And it's the
sharing.
sharing. All right. And so, once again, thank you. And to our audience, you heard it here just like it is. None of this is scripted. None of this is made up. You just hear it in the moment, and that's the caregiver reality.